Yay! So this week's video is going to be an honest talk about the creative process. I absolutely love creating things. I think it's really fun, and if you've watched any of my recent videos you'll probably know that I've been trying to finish off some half-finished projects that I've had on the back burner for a long time. Now this week's project was to finish a mask, which doesn't sound too tricky, especially as I had a pattern for the mask and I'd helped make one of them before. It all seems very easy. Now me being me, I managed to complicate the issue. The mask itself is really clever. It's so complex and amazingly well designed. And it has been designed to be made out of paper. However, we wanted to use this one for my brother's band and we wanted to make it see-through so that you could light it up and make it look really awesome. So we decided to make it out of clear plastic. Which doesn't sound very terrible until you think about how you're going to construct this mask. It has loads of tabs and the whole point is to try and make everything as invisible as possible. On a normal paper mask you just use glue, but on plastic that looks really messy and you can't use sellotape because you can see it, and it just gets very complicated. So I then had the idea of using double-sided sticky tape because then it will just look consistent. You'll still see the tabs, but there's nothing really you can do about that. Or at least I've not thought of a way of constructing it that gets rid of the tabs. At least no way that will make it stable enough. So this week's video was going to be the triumphant story of me creating this mask. I'd already managed to cut out all of the pieces for the mask a few months ago when I initially planned on doing this. Yes, a few months, because that's how long it's been sat on my desk, waiting to be finished. So my first step was to score all of the folds, just to make them fold sharply and cleanly and easily. Second job was to tape and construct. Unfortunately, this thing did not want to stick together. This is what it was meant to look like, and this is what it actually looked like. The final construction was so bad that I had to use a whole load of hair grips to try and hold it together in the hope that it might eventually stick and hold by itself. And I can tell you how well that worked. This is what my desk looked like the next morning. So a complete and utter failure, which wasn't entirely unexpected, but still pretty pants. Not quite the triumphant end to this story that I'd anticipated. And I think that's the thing about creating anything. Even if you have a set of instructions, it doesn't always go to plan. It's not as simple as following steps. Sometimes things don't work out very well. And then you've got two choices. You either adapt and try again, or you give up. And me, being a bit of a glutton for punishment, I decided to start again. I realised that there was a couple of reasons why the mask probably didn't work. The main being, I hadn't cut the pieces out terribly accurately, which wasn't very good. I get very impatient and I just want the thing to be done. And so when I saw that it wasn't working perfectly the first time, I couldn't really be bothered changing, and that meant that I had to redo the whole thing. The previous time I'd blue tacked all the pieces onto the plastic and then cut round, but obviously the blue tack didn't really hold the pieces in place very well and so they shifted everywhere, so that was the first thing that I needed to change. This time I decided to use masking tape to fix all the pieces on, and there was a lot less movement, so that was a win. The second thing was the pieces didn't hold their shape very well because I don't think I made the folds as sharp as they should be. I mean, there's a fine line with plastic. With paper you can fold it in half and it doesn't break. With plastic you're always wary of it snapping, but I think I'd gone a little bit too gentle, so second time round I decided to fold them a bit sharper and prayed that they didn't fall apart, and thankfully it was successful. This time round one of my mistakes was in printing the pieces for the mask, I managed to print them on paper that was too thick so you couldn't see the printing on the other side, which meant when it came to scoring the folds it was actually really hard to see where the lines were. So my brother created this contraption for me so that I could shine light through the paper and actually see the lines. Sometimes you just have to get a little bit creative. Last time as well it was quite tricky because I was taping the tabs as I went, and sometimes that was quite tricky because I was trying to tape a tab that was hiding behind other bits of the mask. So this time I managed to put all the double-sided tape on all of the tabs before I started construction, which made the whole thing a lot easier. Having made all of those adjustments, making it more accurate and being a bit more patient and learning from previous mistakes, I ended up with this. Doesn't it look awesome? I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out. I mean, there's some room for improvement, but you know, at least he's not fallen apart like the last one. I think that's the thing with creating anything. It's learning from the mistakes that you make, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it won't ever work. It just might mean making some adjustments. I think a lot of people have this expectation of me that I always manage to make a perfect product the first time around, and actually most of the time I really don't. It's kind of fun. I like learning and developing new skills, and it makes it more challenging, and who doesn't like a bit of a challenge? On the more successful side of finishing projects this week, I managed to finish this, which is a very lovely Peter Rabbit cross stitch. I think I finished all the cross stitching parts of it about 2 years ago, and all there was left to do was a bit of the back stitching to form the outline, but I found the back stitching really boring and so I completely ignored it. But this week I just got it out and spent about 3 hours and I finished it off, and that's very exciting. So another project off the list. Woo! So at least there's a project that was easy to successfully finish this week. I'm going to try and see if I can salvage the other mask, but I'm not holding my breath, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed seeing me failing at crafting, and I will see you next week. Bye.